being born and raised in Lewis Place, going to church in the Ville at Antioch Baptist Church, and riding my bike over to my grandma's house in Penrose neighborhood, I'm very familiar with, the legacy of North St. Louis City, just like many of our youth that grow up in our communities. But growing up on Newberry, which extends into Cook, that's where Rankin is located. And so I decided, I'm gonna just go where the closest area of opportunity is to me. And that's why I ended up going to Rankin and getting a 2-year degree in electrical control systems. But then understanding that, from there, I wanted to continue to advance my life and my career. And I ended up going to Webster University, where I got a bachelor's degree in business administration, and then moved on to get my MBA degree. But I think it's also important for you all to understand who I am and my come from place, because I see this as a relationship that SODC and my leadership team has in community, to be able to understand who you're working with and who you're talking to and coordinating with, because I think a lot of information gets lost in communication. Now, how do we rebuild in a way that is, it won't be how it was, but it can be better for in the future? Creating more diversity in the businesses that are there, creating a housing stock that is now reflective of the future of our community, and being able to participate and be one of the leading drivers in that investment is something that I take, extremely serious every day. And so now to be here, it is challenging, as you spoke about, Mr. Steele, to make these hard decisions on how we invest, where we invest, and being very diligent and thoughtful around that, around how we drive impact in the city of St. Louis. Again, recognizing when I grew up in North City, I seen Black-owned businesses be successful. I seen Black-owned businesses thrive, but we had this greater sense of community. It's going to take systemic changes. The resources that we have today is just a small fraction of what's necessary to rebuild our community, rebuild that trust in our neighborhoods, rebuild the infrastructure, ultimately invest in our schools and other educational outcomes to improve our overall city. And so it's important now that we have these resources, that we're investing in areas that can start to contribute towards our tax base. And so as we've, started to award some of our first grants, being focused on the areas that have the greatest distress. So that's been a priority for us, is to focus on those areas that, haven't been able to contribute at all to our tax base. How do we start to build some of those anchor institutions in these neighborhoods? How do we restore some of the legacy of those buildings, like Sarah Lou Cafe, Chuck Berry House, Wellston Loop, Club Imperial, and then looking over into South City, seeing some of our closed high schools, such as Cleveland High School. How do we make sure that we make those investments in a way that it's not just helping that building or helping that individual business, but how does that catalyze other growth around it? Right? And so that's when I talk about the heart work versus the head work. The heart is like, I want to help everybody. I want to see every small business win. But then as we think about the long-term growth and having to make hard decisions around what are the most catalytic to drive growth, to strengthen the neighborhood, to close the wealth gap, to be able to improve health and educational outcomes, to ultimately drive our population back, and ultimately grow our tax base, so we will have those resources and being able to make decisions on how we invest in our educational system and have some of these social programs that we can expand long term. We recently acquired a new workforce development center on MLK and Vanderventer. It's called the Monarch. It will be the campus for economic mobility. We have a plan to be able to bring SLATE, our St. Louis Agency for Training and Employment, our Office of Violence Prevention, some of the resources and programs that we have at the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, as well as working with manufactured housing builders that will do training to prepare our youth, our unemployed and underemployed for those jobs of the future. I think you talked about the container homes, and we have fabricated homes. Construction industry is continuing to change. And again, knowing my background, having that connection to Rankin, being in that neighborhood, they're already engaged and want to be part of what that training process looks like, because they've seen a significant increase in the number of students they have opposed to some of the larger four-year universities, because individuals in our community, they're like, the kids are learning, I want to get paid. And that was my mindset coming out of high school when I went to Rankin, is I need to find a way to make a living, because when I first purchased my first car, my mom said, you can definitely get a car, but that's on you to figure it out. And that's for a lot of these students, it's not just getting a car, but it's also contributing towards groceries, utility bills, because they have multiple brothers and sisters and siblings that live in their household, and they have to sometimes step up and be, part of that income system. That's why we're opening the Monarch on MLK, is because we want to have close proximity. So when kids walking down MLK, or they're riding the bus down MLK or Jefferson or Grand or Kings Highway, they know they have access to these type of programs and resources that actually create an opportunity to change the trajectory of their lives. Thankful for everybody's time and trust and patience with me at SODC, the city of St. Louis, as we're working again to reverse decades and decades of this fragmentation and disinvestment and segregation and marginalization of people and communities. So again, we can't turn the tide overnight, but we're continuing to invest as much as we can into the future of our city.
Grantsmanship, and we have banks coming in and doing all that. But one of the most important things is that I try to share is hope. That when people have hope, a whole bunch of things happen with their own growth. You decrease crime and all that, because our problems are not of our own making necessarily. But where we can give people hope and direction, I think what happens is we start solving out a lot of those problems ourselves. So I'm delighted for you all to be here. I'm delighted for Neal to be here. But before Neal leaves, I'd like the staff of the chamber to come up right quick. Would like to present Mr. Neal with this plaque, and I'll read it. It's Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce, Black Business Leadership, presented to Neal Richardson for the advancement of black businesses in the city of St. Louis, presented on behalf of the St. Louis Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. Mr. Neal.
Thank you.
Closer together.
Wait, hold on.
Let's gotta get that bow right.
You ready, Kim?
Thank you, sir. Thank you all so much.
You deserve it. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Tell me about your business first.
It's the Doctor's Touch Outreach, and it deals with the arts education. And so I turned in my application in December. I did the one-on-one thing in March, and so I haven't heard from anybody since then.
You got your card.
Yes, sir.
I'll follow up with you. I'm gonna do some research into it, because you have a list of all 700 applications. So let me go through it and see exactly. Is the name of the business?
Doctor's Touch Outreach.
And I'll make sure that either myself or someone connect with you this week to kind of get you an update. And I know we got a lot of things that we're going to be doing together, so I look forward to that too. So, yeah.
And we having issues with getting the papers out on time. TD is actually the publisher.
Edgar Everett.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.